to make up some time in the agenda without losing content or the value of the meeting. I'm going to move one item around based on the fact that we are starting at this moment. We're going to start, instead of with the director's update, we're going to start with Cary Boulevard project. So Annette, if you can come on up to the table. Thank you very much. Thanks for hanging out. I know you're pushed, so just push the button, make sure it's green, and go forward.
All right, is this audible for everyone? Okay, thank you so much. Good evening to the members of the committee and to the staff of the Portland Housing Bureau and the esteemed guests that are behind me. Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself and the work of the Habitat for Humanity naming work group as it relates to the mutual interest in the Cary Boulevard property. Next slide, please. We're trying to do the slide. Oh. That's okay. Shall I? Yeah, we have a manual slide. Okay, thank you, sir. My name is Annette Pronk, and I serve as the Community Development Manager. I come to this work through my own lived experience of housing instability and then later stability through an affordable home ownership opportunity through the programming of the Portland Housing Center and a nonprofit developer. Perhaps you all remember Host. Once I gained the stability of housing in the Northeast Cully neighborhood, I became very active in anti-displacement measures. I personally developed leadership and advocacy skills through the work of Living Cully Housing Action Team. I, along with my neighbors, actively campaigned in the Let's Buy the Sugar Shack, the campaign that ultimately led to the build of 141 affordable homes at the Las Aladitas build. I went on from advocating for renters' rights to engaging in the creation of the Cully TIF district. I came into that work as a community member. And so from the charter to the deep community engagement and then to the final execution or through the executive leadership committee. It's through this lived experience that I have the privilege also, and I want to introduce, if we can go to the former slide, please. Thank you. I want to introduce the, in this photograph, you see the inaugural Habitat Homeowner Leadership Council. I bring up this council very specifically because 3 of the council members are folks who went through the preference policy program. I think I want to share that this council, the guiding principles are based in innovation and community building. The belief with the council members are that solutions emerge from the people closest to the problems. And so the folks, we are engaging in all levels. We believe that the small shifts can cause systemic and large-scale changes. So we are starting small, and we acknowledge that the best ideas come from unsuspecting places, so we engage with curiosity. I'm very honored to work with the council, and I want to share some of their the statements that they self-identify by, and I bring this to you as groundwork for the naming work group. So the council, they see themselves as a council of resiliency and acknowledge that many of us have a lived experience of being the first. They go on to say, we have commitment to community, and it looks like practicing cultural revitalization and building skills to share. We have cultivated our inner strength and do not abandon people around us. We are socially connected and able to show our vulnerability, to uplift others, and to be able to seek help. We are making a better life for ourselves, our families, and for future generations. I add that because also the council convene, also in an advisory capacity, and so they're also being consulted internally on the naming of the Cary Boulevard future site. Next slide, please. So the naming work group in Habitat is, I'm very happy to have the privilege to guide the naming work group as an advisory body that was created in just the fall of 2023. The naming work group's charge is to streamline the naming process for habitat land acquisitions and for future build sites. And we're using the racial equity filters adapted from the Center of Equity and Inclusion. We're actively making space for the practice of intentionality, dialogue, and connection. And as we build that within our cross-departmental group, we also kind of push out to do that work within our larger organization at Habitat. You can read on the slide there, those are our guiding principles. Next slide, please. I wanted to share we've had some success on how we've started to name things. So in the past, naming was done with not so much intention. The naming was often pulled from street names and then slapped on words that are common in English naming of words such as like place or commons or gardens. And then it became apparent that by tacking on the street names, that some of the street names were really honoring folks from past history who have been not such great players in history. So the naming work group, we begin a process of broadening our naming process. So for example, this particular site here that's located in Southwest Portland, we leaned into naming this Gooseberry Trails, and that was to acknowledge the land that nourishes this native plant gooseberry, and also that in this build there is a trail system that will be used, and so that's how we came to name this particular build, which will have five-bedroom homes and going on down to smaller homes, but I just want to note the size of the homes. Next slide, please. Another success that we had in naming was this piece. We were calling it Myrtlewood Way. It is 20 homes that are located in the Gresham's Rockwood neighborhood. We're honoring this evergreen myrtlewood tree. And we started to lean into nature as a grounding experience for, again, the beginnings of this naming work group. We chose this because this particular tree, myrtlewood, it stands for longevity. It has a lifetime of over 500 years. It can regenerate from its roots, and we felt that that was speaking to building roots of a new home. The wood itself is strong and hard and finely grained. It beautifully stands out with the variations of the browns depending on the minerals in the soils. And it actually is a great wood that's used for the tonality of musical instruments. And so as moving on now to what you really want to hear about is the Cully Boulevard. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as I believe you know, that Habitat contracted with Camille Trummer to lead a community engagement specifically around the design decisions for the future Cary Boulevard community. The outreach was conducted exclusively with individuals of the current preference policy list, and the project was launched in January of 2024 with the survey implementation happening in May, and an in-person design workshops were in July. You may recall Habitat came before the committee in July to present the initial findings from the survey engagements. As part of the engagement, Habitat asked participants to share their ideas around what they thought would be appropriate name for the Cully Boulevard. Next slide, please. So some of the ideas that were heard directly from the community, it was leaned into prominent leaders and figures here. and then also into particular concepts. So Paul Knowles was the most suggested name for the development. However, several people preferred not to name it after a person and suggested to the use of more concept-related options. This was echoed both in the survey and in the in-person event. Next slide, please. And so the naming committee, we really pulled previously, they had in the concepts, there was True North, and the naming committee ourselves, we came up with the name of Redwood Bluffs. Redwood was pulled from, if you see in the map in the upper left-hand corner, there is an ancient redwood tree that is there in the property. And we chose Bluffs because it is situated on the bluffs there by the Willamette River. But I want to really draw attention to True North, as that is a concept name that came up with out of the survey results. So these are our recommendations that we're bringing forth to the committee. I want to go to the next slide, please. And I want to share you with like our timeline. So we see our deadline for the naming decision to be in early June. Then the decision would be done around this time because that's when the land will be transferred to Habitat. The current timeline is somewhere around June 25th. Once the decision is made on what name will be chosen, the process is that we go to the attorneys and they determine if the name is available and officially reserves the name. Next slide, please. So I'm coming to you with those two suggestions. I wanted to share that with you and open up if you had any questions or if perhaps you had other suggestions that the naming committee should take under advisement. I don't want to put you on the spot on that, so I am including both contact information for myself and also for Aaron Maxey, who is the Director of Housing. And next slide. I just wanted to offer you great gratitude for allowing me to share this information with you this evening.
Thanks, Annette. We appreciate you. Before you, I know you've got to run. Before you do we have any committee members online? Can't see any. Achilles, I see you there. Oh, Sheila.
I was just going to say, Achilles is here.
Okay, thank you, Achilles. Sheila, did you have any question or comment about the naming for Carriot Boulevard?
I have a bias, so I'll admit that up front. But my bias is for Paul Knowles, and I know you said he had the most names, but you were thinking of something that was not. The committee has chosen a name that is more related to the area instead of an individual. But that would have been my preference too.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Ms. Holden. Achilles, any comment at all around that?
As far as names, I'm between True North and Rose Cottage. Great presentation.
Thank you for that feedback. Just wanted to get feedback from the group before you take off. Ramon?
No, I don't have any questions at this moment.
Okay, excellent. Ms. Virgie, comment for.
Are you interested in another name? A person? I would like to add Reverend James Coleman, a pastor at Emmanuel, advocate for the community, has dedicated, volunteered, done many good things for this neighborhood.
Awesome. Thank you. Kevin, thoughts?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Washington.
Yeah, I got a suggestion. I'd like it to be my name, Mr. Washington. No? Hell, if you're open to suggestions.
That mouths don't get fed.
Yeah, that's what I say. No, I said that the last thing in my life, I'm going to put my name on a building. Yeah, well, that'd be the end of things. I was curious about this first picture you showed us. Is this your staff?
No, sir. This is the the inaugural Habitat Leadership Council. These are Habitat homeowners. They've been homeowners ranging from as late as 1 year up to 20 years. The representation comes from all quadrants of the Portland region.
Any men in there?
I like that question because there were men who did apply, and one of the learnings that we're having in this first year, the men who did apply are located in Hillsborough. And one of the intentions for this first group to really build community and get to know one another is we had mandatory beginnings where we meet in person, face to face, so that we could build a sense of trust and understanding amongst each other. And there were two gentlemen who were from the west side and were unable to make that commitment to make that long commute come in. And I just want to acknowledge and recognize that this will be something that the council themselves will begin to brainstorm of, like how do we reduce barriers for access. As Portland, Habitat Portland, we're going further and further out. So that's a bit of the basis of the limitation of there were no men in this particular
Oh, okay.
group.
Well, I was waiting on the answer. Just no men, right?
No men, sir.
Okay, well, y'all gonna work on doing that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
All right, that's the only thing I seen.
Ms. Jillian.
No, I think if those are the names that the committee of residents and that you've put together has suggested, I support the process by which you've selected those names. It may not be the ones that I would have picked off that list, but I want to respect the process and the team that you put together and the leadership council, and I think that's a really amazing thing to put into place, not just for naming properties, but also for creating a feedback loop within your organization to check in on how you're doing and get real input in real time from people who are living the experience of being in that housing. So well done.
Thank you, thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate all the comments. I will offer two thoughts in regard to the naming process. One of the concerns I have as I looked at the committee, the naming committee, was an absence of color. And as I saw that, it made me be concerned as it relates to the history of community, neighborhood, et cetera. So something to think about as the naming goes forward. And then secondly, something that connects to kind of the heartbeat of the work that we're doing in terms of creating spaces for family and community and that kind of thing. So those are two observations that I want to offer you.
With respect, I didn't give the names. Fortunately, we do have members that identify as persons of color on the committee. It's a little bit hard to see. We have Liv is in the corner there, and it it's. I apologize. It's a bit hard to see.
Those are the only suggestions. I appreciate it.
And I appreciate that
Yeah,
notice.
thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Thank you all very much.
Real quick, Annette, so if there are other comments or anything, how soon do we need to get those to you? I know you said they want to have the name chosen by the middle of June.
Yes.
Okay.
So on this slide presentation, I think it gives a date of June 6th.
Okay.
It's just to give some, wiggle room.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
We will go to our director's updates. Helmy.
Thank you. I'm just gonna.
Mine's working.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. And to those online, I'm Helmy Hisserick, Director at the Portland Housing Bureau. Really pleased to be here this evening. And I want to give a quick update on the Homelessness and Housing Committee at the city. So the city, as you know, has gone through a big change process in terms of its local government. And in February, they seated committees. So now, instead of going to full commission, we are going and taking our housing items to a committee. The committee is the Homelessness and Housing Committee. It meets twice a month. Tuesdays, the second and fourth Tuesday of each month. And it is chaired by City Councilor Candace Avalos, and the vice chair of the committee is City Council Member Jamie Dunphy. Both of them represent District 1. And then there's representatives from all districts on the committee, and it includes Angelita Murillo, Dan Ryan, and Eric Zimmerman. So 3 council members, Councilor Murillo from District 3, Councilor Ryan from District 2, and Councilor Zimmerman from District 4. So this entire city is represented on the committee. The committee has met 6 times now, and it's starting to get its sea legs in terms of activity. And I just want to share a few things that are one that's about to happen and a few that have happened. So what's about to happen and what's relevant to all of you is that the celebration and the presentation of the North-Northeast housing strategy and also the preference policy will be going to the Homelessness and Housing Committee on June 24th. So please turn out, people. Let's make it a celebration. I was so pleased to be part of the celebration that we held here. And I think that it's really eye-opening. The results of the North-Northeast housing strategy are pretty powerful, and I'm really hoping that when they go to the City Council Committee, we can really show the significance of the work that's happened here. And so we have a little bit of time to get that ready, but that'll be a wonderful opportunity to present the work here in North-Northeast Portland. In May, the committee adopted a resolution by Councilmember Mitch Green, who is not on the committee. It was a joint resolution by Councilor Mitch Green and Councilor Candace Avalos to study social housing. So that's actually something that is very important to me. It's something I've studied for some years. So I'm very, very pleased to be able to lead a one-year study on social housing with recommendations to go to council a year from now. So May 2026, we will come back with recommendations. And I would just like to ask that I would love to come back to this committee here during our community engagement process and do some education and do some dialogue around what is social housing. I'm not going to talk about it tonight, but it's something that we're all learning about, and I think one thing I'll say is that there's not a one definition of what it is. It's actually a set of principles, a kind of system. And I think Portland can choose if Portland chooses to go forward with it, we can adopt a model that works for Portland and builds on Portland's strengths. And then lastly, something that is forthcoming is Councilor Avalos did a presentation on something she's planning to bring a resolution on, which is called the One Housing Plan. And the resolution will be coming either in this next committee meeting or the one after. And the One Housing Plan that she's presented is basically to take the many, many, many housing plans of Portland and try to create a single plan that starts really with homelessness all the way through to home ownership. I mean, it's really what are all the things that we're trying to achieve. And as the director at that Portland Housing Bureau, and I'm here with my executive team colleagues, Leslie Goodlow, Angel Landron, we are constantly looking at a whole bunch of different plans. We've got the Homelessness Response Action Plan, we've got the Housing Production Plan, we've got the North-Northeast Strategy, we've got a lot of different plans that we're constantly looking at. We've got the bond implementation plans for the Metro bond, and we've got the bond implementation plan for the City of Portland bond. So for us, the idea of sort of pulling this into a large single cohesive vision for the city, I think will be very helpful. Will help us think more systemically and not just about housing production, but really about the preservation of housing, about the protection of tenants, about the creating opportunities for home ownership. So this plan is still in its infancy. The proposal is coming from Councilor Avalos, and she will be rolling it out. And I think that it will engage not just the Housing Bureau, it'll engage the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. It will engage the Prosper Portland, who does the TIF districts and economic development. It will engage the Portland Solutions team, which is working on homelessness, shelter care, and it'll engage the county and their various folks working on homelessness. So there will be a lot of people involved in pulling this together, and it'll also, I'm sure, engage community. But I wanted to just highlight those so that you were aware as leaders in Northeast on housing issues. It will be really important for you all to be engaged in that dialogue. Lastly, I want to touch on the budget. That's really what is uppermost in our minds right now. As you've probably heard or read in the press, there's been was a $90 million budget gap in the city of Portland, or over $90 million. The mayor presented a balanced budget on May 5th. It's been a lot of work bringing that budget forward, and he is now in a conversation with city councilors. The councilors have to adopt the budget. They have the opportunity to make amendments and to work through these amendments with the mayor and the city administrator. And what I'll share is big picture, there's a lot of nervousness within the city. We are looking at potential layoffs within the city, and there's a proposed reduction in force. And so there's a lot of nervousness and concerns within the city family. Nothing specific is yet on the table. There's a lot of process that happens before that would occur, and there will be I think a real effort to try to find other ways to address budget gaps. But at the moment, that is sort of where the city is. They're in this negotiation period. And then I wanted to invite a Deputy Director of Portland Housing Bureau, Angel Landron, who also oversees our finance group, to give us a little overview of where Portland Housing Bureau budget is.
Thank you, Helmi. The budget, as you explained, was presented by the mayors on the 5th. The next step is for the Housing Bureau, along with the service area. We are going to present the budget next Wednesday, the 14th. And the budget will be adopted by the City Council on June 11th. An important element to state is that when we submitted the budget for the Housing Bureau, we submitted a balanced budget. So the budget in the Housing Bureau is balanced for the next fiscal year. The mayor is proposing some core services efficiencies to be implemented in the next 2 years for a total of 20%. The plan is to implement 10% the next fiscal year. Based on the information that we have received so far, that part is not having any significant impact for the Housing Bureau for the next fiscal year. We cannot talk about the following year, but we feel confident that with the budget that we have is to keep the current service level, and we are looking to keep our operation going. I get back to Helmi.
So that 20% you were talking about, is it over the 3 years as a deficit, or as a what? Tell me more about the 20% and how is that going to be imposed?
Well, it's there's not too much information about that, more than identify enterprise efficiencies that they are looking to find around 9.5 million during 10 years, and they are looking to improve some operational activities related to administration. That is the scope citywide, but it depends on each service area. So that's why for our service area, when we submitted our budget, we applied a 10% cut for the general fund. So because we have supported so much in the beginning, that helps us to be less impacted in the next adjustment that is coming. Okay. But this is something that is changing every day. So this is the information that we have so far today, but still we feel confident that the Bureau will be in good standing for next fiscal year.
Thank you.
I'll go around the table for questions. Thanks for the report. Was there anything else, Helmi, before I begin? Okay. Jillian, start with you.
Thanks. I have two main points. One is, well, I respect the new format for city council and that there's a committee process for housing and homelessness. I am concerned, and if I'm honest, a little annoyed that this report has completely fallen off of the agenda of any city council meeting. My expectation would have been that we give a kind of long-form report to the committee and a short-form report to the city council. I think it indicates, it telegraphs that this committee doesn't rise to the level of importance to the full city council. And many of the people that sit on that city council campaigned on being part of housing solutions, being part of ending homelessness in this city, and I am annoyed that they don't want to hear from us who are out here and who have been doing the work for a decade. So I just want to speak that into existence. I think that is compounded by the fact that they haven't met with this committee or attended this committee or introduced themselves to us. And it just really is demonstrating apathy, a lack of concern and care about the work that we do. And this work has been transformational and unlike anything that any other city has done, and it just does not feel acknowledged. So I wanted to express that. The other thing I wanted to make a comment on is the One Housing Plan. And I just want to caution, as that is being developed, that solutions for the majority often exclude minorities. Absolutely. The reason for the North-Northeast housing strategy is to serve and center people who have been underserved and indeed intentionally misplaced for the benefits of the majority as an act of white supremacy culture. And I just want to caution that a solution that combines all of these plans and addresses each of these areas of the city and the minority voices in the city is fine. It's great to have everything organized and in one binder and in one place, but one plan for the whole city for everyone that lives here is not going to work for everyone that lives here. And so I just want to caution, as that's being developed, to remember to center the voices of those who have been underserved and displaced and intentionally maligned and pushed out of and voices who have been silenced, and to welcome them to participate in that, because I think the risk of having a single plan is that committees like this cease to exist. And so that is, I think it's, on the one hand, I see the organizationally, yep, and the efficiency and wanting to have one place to go, and at the same time, I just want to caution that it is a lot of times through these processes that the work that we've done here often gets lost.
Well stated. Especially your first point. I thought, did you write the opening to our meeting for our report out? But you highlight exactly what we're concerned about as it relates to the work of the committee. Sure. Absolutely.
So first of all, I just want to thank you for the comments. For me as the director, it's very important to hear that point of view. And I will certainly take it back and express it from the role that I play. But I also want to say that the chair of the committee is a person of color who takes this issue very seriously. And I think if this committee were to bring forward that point of view, or if you as individuals bring that point of view forward, I think it won't fall on deaf ears. I think there will be a receptivity to the importance of lifting up non-majority voices and perspectives in the plan. So I just would like to say I think that's an important point and a role this group can play.
Well, I will say this. It is in the report. It is the beginning of the report. I am not by any means as gentle as you were, but we're extremely specific, and we call out much of the history of what we know to be Oregon, and more specifically Portland. And so we are absolutely addressing that. So around the corner, around our team, John, any comment? I'll come back to her. I'll get to her. Yeah.
Ooh, boy. You know, these times are really, and thank you, Julian, for that, because there's a consciousness that comes behind that. But, it's just so difficult right now to adjust the emotional capacity to somehow breathe into some of these issues and topics. I mean, because it's almost like you could see the freight train on the track coming, you know. And if you've been around as long as I've been around, you know, you could see some of this stuff coming. And that singular plan to us today just eradicates any kind of equity and diversity that could possibly be. You know. So I appreciate who's at the board, but at the same time, you know, these systems, white supremacy has found black faces to replace some of those white ones that there's. So not everybody that's black sitting at the table is black. So just that consciousness, just so that you know, that's what I'm thinking. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. Comment?
Yeah, thanks, Jillian, for that was great. I think summed up what a lot of us are thinking. And I guess, like, what do you see as a risk to this in this sort of one housing policy? Like, as you're involved in these conversations, like what worries you about that outside of the organizational and operational efficiency we get? Like, is it sort of losing some of the more community-specific programs, or are there other things that concern you about kind of consolidating all of this into one policy?
You know, I don't have a concern about it right now. I think I'm listening to all of you, so I appreciate the input, and I will certainly reflect on it and discuss it with our executive team and our managers. One of the things that I see as a positive outcome of it is that certain plans within the city dominate the discussion. One plan that tends to dominate the discussion internally is the housing production strategy. And I feel that one actually, we lose the opportunity to talk about tenant protections. We lose the opportunity to talk about displacement in a very material way. When I came to the city, the housing production strategy had been already pretty close to created. The fair housing work was pushed out pretty far into the future, and we as a bureau decided we wanted to push it up to the front, and it wasn't even assigned to us to do. So I'm actually looking at that one housing plan as an opportunity to re-engage on some of the things that I see as missing in other plans that exist. You know, of course, we will see as this rolls forward all of these things that you're raising, but I actually personally, as the director at Housing Bureau's view, as it a positive opportunity to reframe some of the conversations within the city. And that said, I do want to say there's a lot of good in that housing production strategy. It's not a bad strategy at all. It's a really important one to continue talking about producing housing. But just, you know, give us another opportunity to deep dive. One other thing is I don't want the social housing work to get lost. I feel, you know, that is a really important conversation to have, and the one worry I have is having, you know, TIF district formations happening at the same time as we have social housing discussions, at the same time as we have a one housing plan discussion. Those are a lot of conversations taking place at the same time, and, you know, want to be sure that we don't kind of just get everybody exhausted.
Thanks. I also want to acknowledge you mentioned the kind of nervousness around the city, and just appreciate how hard it is to work in an environment where you're worried about colleagues losing their jobs and budget cuts, and just appreciate you showing up and engaging so thoughtfully. So just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you. It can be hard.
Thanks, Kevin. Ms. Virgie.
Well, this is very kind of a surprise, but I have to go back a ways. I was born here, grew up here, lived in a district where only blacks could live in this city. And the state basically was everybody but black, except for one or two here and there. And I think we've come too far today to try to go back. And that's the way I feel right now, that there's so many changes around this nation and even in this state that causes me to say, we got to be a part of it. And this was a committee of, I think, the Housing Bureau, when they decided to take a step forward and to go out and invite people in. Do you want to have a say about housing, affordable housing, renting, having a place you can go to, have a home? And those are the things that attracted me. And I wanted to do something, and I was overwhelmed when I went to some of the meetings. The meetings were huge, in the thousands, and the people had things to say. And then the Housing Bureau decided to form this team. And then those of us that came, we were heard. And we also remember what we learned from those people that came to those meetings. How were we going to help them? And we helped them. I think about where we started with a small budget. It was very large for us because we didn't even have a budget before. Everybody was out for themselves, trying to get a home. And today, there are so many people that were displaced in this area, Northeast, and not encouraged to live in other parts of the city. So based on that, I think we really have to be protective. We still have obligations to continue because we just got in the door. This committee has just been 10 years old, and we have needs still within the community, people, lives, homes, families, children, elderly. There's so much to be done that we can't just forget and say, let's replace it with something else. I think when you have something that's working, you keep letting it work and you try to make it better and expand it and continue to hear the voice of the people and meet their needs. So that's all I have to say.
That's great. Well said. Thank you very much. I will start with Achilles. Any comments?
No, I just second our committee, and Jillian just expressed exactly what her frustration from our side. So the city know, the new committee know, the new city officials not including us in their mind.
Ability. Yeah, yep. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Tanisha Renee. Thank you, Achilles. Tanisha, any comment?
Not at this time. I apologize for being late. I'm just kind of getting a little caught up and want to just kind of observe a little bit before I put any input in. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. Ms. Sheila Holden.
Three speakers. But the thing that I'm concerned about is we're on to the next shiny thing, and I would hope that it's not something where all this work that's happened, everything that's been built upon from the ICRAC, the Interstate Urban Renewal Committee, and then for the groups that were formed off of that to make sure that we got to a place where people who were from the Northeast Portland area would be able to come back after they were priced out of the neighborhood, that we would consistently make sure that happened, that it wasn't just the housing group here, that it was inculcated within the whole city structure and understanding of how development and creating wealth for those people who were most poorly treated or adversely impacted by the redevelopment that the city has enjoyed throughout the years, at a price for Black folks. I do not understand why it would be hard for the housing chair to not just make sure that's all included up front so that there's no question.
Thank you very
Because
much.
it's a continuous thing that's owed to the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ramon, any comment?
Just that echo the same concerns and frustrations that the previous committee members have said.
Thank you very much. Ms. Leslie.
So I just wanted to, as we're moving towards going to council on June 24th with our report, that Councilor Avalos can refer this to full council. And I think that it's part of this committee's job, if you all want to go to full council, to tell them that this needs to go to full council. That can't come from me, even though I have said it over and over and over again. It needs to come from the council, this group that you all want to present to full council, because she can refer it. And the council president is District 2, which is it's Purtle Guinea is the council president, and she's from District 2, which we are part of. Northeast Housing Strategy is part of District 2. So I just wanted to add that. And I just wanted to also that Samir Kanal and Dan Ryan both were at the 10-year celebration. So they did come and participate, and so they're aware of it. And I think that we have two advocates there, and we can get Candace and the president. I think we're on the road.
Thank you very much. Lastly, I will say thank you for the presentation tonight. Angel, very thorough and clear. What a challenging moment to have to navigate the finance, and I appreciate the repeated emphasis that the service delivery will have no impact. At least that's the goal, which is part of us. So I appreciate the priority around that. Thank you very much for your reports tonight. Moving forward, we are going to go to John Tran and Ira Bailey. Welcome.
Good night. See you Saturday. Oh,
Achilles, you're not muted. Thanks, buddy.
Good evening, Oversight Committee members, Dr. Hope's staff, directors, and leadership. My name is John Tran. I'm the Neighborhood Housing Preservation Manager.
Good evening, Ira Bailey, Housing Bureau.
And tonight we're going to present to you some of our preference policy homeownership update. But before that, I just want to talk about in terms of home repair programs. We did hire another housing construction coordinator onto our team. He's been really working hard in terms of taking care of the home repair loan programs. So we completed about 3 home repair projects this year already. We have 5 that we're going to start coming up. And in process, we have about 13 projects around home repair, to really in terms of the program itself is really in terms of allowing folks, homeowners, to take to receive up to $40,000 if they have equity in their home as a loan. The loan is 0 payment, 0 interest, and if they continue to stay in their home, that loan gets forgiven. And the home repair is really to focus on in terms of life safety and fire. So we work with the homeowners to assess areas that need to be upgraded. Is there a roof? Is there a remodel of a kitchen or a bathroom? That kind of stuff. So it's been a successful program. We have dollars from the TIF district. Prosper also added some of the TIF dollars that they came to them, but they pushed it back to us, that we use that for the home repair loan program. So with that, I'm going to pass to Ira to talk about home ownership.
Thank you. So we have had, since the last Oversight Committee meeting, which I believe was in January, and I apologize for missing the 10-year celebration. I was very, very sick. I just didn't want to pass anything around, and I didn't want anyone asking me if I had COVID. I did not, by the way. But we have had 2 additional buyers. So at this time, we're sitting at about 119 year to date, or total, since the beginning of the program. And I just found out tonight that one of our preference policy buyers purchased in March. Unfortunately, they did not use preference policy dollars, but they were able to purchase. They did work with Portland Housing Center. So that was a great thing to find out. They were a 6-point household. Yeah, still a win. So this is not as completely updated as it could be. But yeah, she just told me tonight. So we have a total of 130 families. Some of the things that we aren't able to capture is what? Oh, next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, 130 total families. But what this doesn't capture are families that have been able to purchase prior to being pulled off the list, because we haven't been able, we don't follow them in that way. So a lot of the families are already working with homeownership counseling agencies, are able to purchase. I then invite them to a preference policy info session, and then they're like, I already bought. So we're not able to capture that just yet. But it is still a win. We still are having people buy and purchase. I will say, unfortunately, we haven't had as much as I thought we would once we increased the DPAL to the $150,000 mark in interstate. And when I check in with the counseling agencies, and that is PCRI as well as Portland Housing Center, one of the main concerns is just the market itself. High interest rates, people are afraid to go into the market. And now currently with the administration, federally, the way it is, people are still a little bit more afraid. The great thing, though, is that housing prices are starting to come down. So hopefully more affordable things will work. Thought I heard something.
Ms. Sheila, were you trying to comment?
No, I was just, he said housing prices are coming down now. And I just reacted when I heard that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not dropping yet, but they are coming down slowly. And apparently in the, at the Fed level, interest rates may start to come down slowly as well. So we'll see how that goes. As you can see, the 2 families that purchased, they were, one was 80%, 80.1% AMI, to be exact, and the other was 100% AMI. Both were able to purchase using Prosper Portland dollars. So since this year, the 3 purchases, or since the end of last year, the 3 purchases we have all been in the interstate corridor, which is great. Next slide, please. Yep, that is, the 2 additional families were also identified as Black or African American, self-identified. We didn't look at them and say, that's what you are. Next slide, please. And there, as you can see, it's a pretty balanced breakdown between the 61 to 80, the 81 to 100. That is where most of the purchases have come from, but it doesn't imply or speak to the actual incomes, which is what people need to purchase, not AMIs, but we are in discussions if we want to start tracking the incomes as well. So next slide, please. All right, so info sessions. Are we getting people into the pipeline? Yes. We started inviting people for info sessions at the end of last year. We had 6 info sessions, 2 in November, 4 in January, and we have an info session, a virtual one, on May 28th. And what I'm doing is inviting the people who could not attend the 7-point info sessions, which were first in November, and the 6 points, which were in January. So right now that it's about 30 families that have been invited to the virtual info session, and hopefully I'll hear from them before next week so we can get the information to them. 8 so far have RSVP'd. So that is the end of our presentation, or my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Questions, committee? Ms. Virgie?
Going back to John, he mentioned the repair program, and we were talking about the grant for $40,000 And how does it work with equity? Could you give us an actual example?
Sure. So if someone has a home, they've been living there, they have $20,000 in equity. So they could get a home loan up to $20,000, 0%, zero interest, no payment. And if they continue to stay there after the renovation is completed, and they stay there for 15 years, that lien will go away, forgiven. The loan will get forgiven. If they have equity up to $40,000, they could get a loan up to $40,000. So it depends on the equity of the home.
Equity, thank you.
Thank you.
Committee members, John, question, Jillian?
I have a quick question. What about, I know we talk about the efforts around the home repair, but one of the components that we initially looked at, it was just not home repair, but it was education around what they can do to make sure that they're able to stay in the home. And so are they getting that counseling and technical assistance as well?
If they choose it. So we have several organizations that support homeowners once they're in the home that provide homeownership retention. PCRI, again, great organization, is one of them. African American Alliance is one of them. And Portland Housing Center has a post-purchase education program. It is just the challenge of people actually wanting to come in, but they will continue to offer it. But it is available.
Okay.
And I would say in addition to that. Go ahead, Ms. Sheila, sorry.
I thought at one point there was the one group that was helping them to figure out if they, if it's an elderly person in the home and their younger children, how they could make sure that they knew how to do their will or do estate planning so that they wouldn't lose the home if the parent, the grandparent had been on the housing where they paid the taxes, deferred taxes program, and that whole piece about how you can make sure that you don't lose your family home because of deferred taxes. Is that part not happening still?
So that's actually two different programs. We do still have the estate planning program that is through and just I do know that part of PHC's education for the preference policy buyers is to refer people to that program, and that is where they get free legal services. The challenge that we have with that, however, is that the funding we use has a cap of 80% AMI because it's federal dollars. So what has happened is there are some families who have been able to purchase who were under 80%, but as they've lived in the home have started to exceed 80%, and so they're not able to be assisted through that funding. As far as the property tax program, that is a state program where you can make an application to the state, to Oregon, and what they will do is essentially they will cover property taxes for elderly folks who have who pretty much own the home to help keep it affordable and help keep them in the home. However, that coverage is not, the state will or may recapture those dollars, those tax dollars from the estate.
Yeah, as soon as that grandparent dies,
correct.
Then there's a sheet or whatever.
Yeah, so if people have questions about that, they can reach out. I'd be happy to talk them through it. I did that earlier this week with a family or for a family, just to give them some idea and then give them some guidance.
They'll be able to work out some kind of agreement. And that was one of the things that was part of that package that was originally developed. And I thought it was in the wraparound services or technical services that were provided to the folks who were getting the home repair work.
Yeah, I can follow up with the agencies that do provide post-purchase assistance and
I think the Community Energy Project was who, when we were doing this under the ICRAC, who were contracted to help with doing that. So I don't know if that's who is still doing it or not.
I honestly don't know, but I will look into it and try to get that answer to you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Ms. Jillian?
I don't want to speak for Ms. Sheila, but I think she's referencing the program, not a post-purchase program, not someone who's getting a new home, but families who have been in their home for a very long time, and there was a program to connect them with estate planning and legal aid. Is that the same program that you're talking about as a post-purchase program?
There's two sides to it. So one is trying to capture people for potentially like foreclosure prevention, how to maintain the home in maintenance style type things, or how to guide them to assistance, or working with the mortgage company to revamp. That's what I normally mean that for post-purchase. But we do still have the estate planning program where it is, is the contract holder that we partner with, and then partners with the Commons Law Center.
And that's the one that's 80% or below?
Correct.
Thank you. I did have one question on, and if you don't know, if you could just email me, I'm just curious. It looks like we've got 32 purchasers who were between 0 and 60% AMI, and I'm wondering if you know roughly how many of them used DPAL and how many of them bought through one of the developers, such as Habitat or I think PCRI also.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a mix. I would guess most of them. I haven't tracked where that range sits. But I can say I know some of the people who were below 60%. In fact, one of the lowest, if not the lowest AMI family we worked with used the DPAL.
Okay.
So that kind of also throws why, AMI is not necessarily a good guide to what the income of the household is, because a larger household can have much more income.
If you could, when you have a chance, send us, I'd just be curious what exactly that breakdown is
Sure.
between DPAL and Habitat. Is Habitat the only one that did it the other way?
And program.
Yeah, Proud Ground.
Kitten.
Patrick. All those.
Kenton.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be great to know. I'm just curious for no other reason that I like numbers.
Sure. Is there a range? Do you want like 0 to 60, 61 to 80?
I just want to know of like the DPAL, like what was the AMI percentage breakdown for DPAL and the other one?
Under 60. Yeah.
How many DPAL and how many went into land trust?
Land
Okay.
trust, thank you.
you.
Oh my gosh, long day.
That happens.
Yeah, I can break that down for you. I'll
Thanks.
get that.
I would love that, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Washington?
I was just curious when I heard you say that a couple of the families got asset from Prosper Portland. I'm not clear. How does that work? Knowing what Prosper's, do they have a program for housing or something over there?
No, so we were able to acquire $1.2 million from Prosper Portland for down payment. Actually, more than that, but people purchased already. But we got some additional funds. If you remember when we were going to do the ADU program, and then
It was
those
1.8.
1.8, correct. And so Prosper kind of recaptured that money because they were going to do an ADU program, did not. So we were able to get that money back.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
And
Okay.
some of the funds went to home repair to help higher income families, and then some of it went to down payment assistance. And so with our dollars that we provide in the interstate, the income limits are 80% if you buy a 2-bedroom or below, and then if you buy a 3-bedroom, it goes up to 100. Prosper Portland's is 81 or 80 to 120, regardless of bedroom size.
Got you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Online, Ramon?
No questions.
Tanisha?
No questions. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Ira. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Divisha, if you would come and join us, give us an update. Security deposit pilot.
Good evening, Oversight Committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to present. My name is Divisha. I'm the Housing Program Coordinator for the Preference Policy.
Davisha, I don't know if your mic is on.
Oh, it is. Let me speak louder.
We're gonna ask her.
Outside voice.
I'm gonna ask you to yell at me, Divisha. You can just
Okay.
yell at me. You can just keep your eyes right on me and yell, and we'll be okay.
That would make it easier. Yes, I could. No, I'm joking. My name is Divisha. I'm the Housing Program Coordinator for the North-Northeast Preference Policy. It's a pleasure to come speak today. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Perfect. Thank you. That is easier. All right. Next slide, please. I went back to whispering. I heard you, Mr. John. I'm counting on the volume there. So just to get us situated, we are all pretty much familiar with the preference policy and how the preference points work. We have those in the 6-point category. Those are the people who are mostly, whose addresses fell in areas where they were urban renewal had the most impact. And then the order just continues to go down after that. So you have the highest level, moderate level, low levels, just to reacclimate us. So this is currently the applications that were submitted by point cohort. For the 6-point cohort, we have 295 applicants. For the 5-point cohort, we have 175. And I wanted to note that I had a correction. I had noted in the last meeting that it was 758. That was an error. The actual number was 154. I have affixed that and sent the corrected presentation to our team, internal team, so that can be affixed. So I just wanted to make sure that that was highlighted so you can see that I'm not playing with the numbers. It was a human error. For the 4-point cohort, we had about 223 applications submitted. Since the last time I reported that, that's about 19 more families. For the 3-point cohort, we have 299. It was 264 last time, so about 35 more families since then. For the 2-point cohort, we have a total of 272. We just had 20 more families apply for that since then. And for the 1-point, we have 164. That's about 32 more families since the last time I presented. And for the final, we had 1,447. So to answer questions about that, majority of them are yes on the 0-point cohort. It's about 1,633 now. Next slide, please. And here is the update on the Security Deposit Grant Assistance Program. So this was a pilot that we launched in 2024 with the goal of helping to remove barriers to moving for people who were moving into preference policy buildings. We continue to use the funding until it is used up. That is planning to be around July 1st, so the beginning of our fiscal year at the city. Next slide, please. So for the first quarter, it was about 25 families that received assistance. Majority of those were for Alberta Alive. Alberta Alive owns the Dr. Darrell Milner building. We authorized payments of $1,000 per family. Most of the funds went to security deposit, with any remaining funds being applied to the tenant's ledger. I actually had the pleasure of meeting with someone today who were conducting qualitative interviews in efforts to produce a report for the Oversight Committee and for other staff members. What was advantageous about this interview is I got a lot of good insight on what and how that was used. The person that I spoke with, I won't name her because she did not give me permission to, but the person that I spoke with today, she said it was really a big help to have to have the security deposit applied to her rent ledger. It allowed her to do other things for her children, which she has 5 children, all under the age of 10. So it was able to alleviate a lot of costs. Yeah, most definitely. She's a very, very strong woman and a good woman. For the second quarter, we had about 15 families that received grant assistance funds. Again, majority of them were referred from Dr. Darrell Milner building. However, we were able to work with Garlington Place again, which I was very happy about. So some of the families did come from there. and Central City Concern for Charlotte B. Rutherford Place. So we saw a little bit more of diversity in who was referring people for that program in the second quarter, still majority being Alberta Alive for transparency. I made a note of this. At the last Oversight Committee member, numbers were asked for. So it looks like the average assistance, okay, I mentioned that, average assistance per household was 1,000, so about 25,000 was the total assistance paid. In quarter two, the average assistance per household was about 980.73. So by then we had a little closer to 15,000 spent. Exact number is about 14,000, a little for that. And then we had, in quarter two, we noticed that there were a lot of retroactive payments made because applications, the referral forms to be specific, were sent very close to the deadline date. We were able to identify some of the challenges being that people weren't able to take advantage of the full moving assistance portion of it, mainly because the requirement was to, well, the requirement interpretation was to present the opportunity to use this pilot program at lease signing. That doesn't give much time for providers to turn around and send a form in efforts to help people move, because usually when you're signing the lease, you need to be moving in within the day or the few days after you sign that lease. We did have a client in quarter two with one of our providers, Garlington Place, that was able to apply that retroactively. The interview hasn't been conducted with that participant yet, at least not by myself, so we hope to share the results of that in the report, because that's more or less what we're looking to present, is how advantageous it could be for people to utilize it and motivate them to move. So a proactive payment allows people to make better choices around their moving costs and so forth. Next slide, please. So in quarter three, we had about 3 families receive grant assistance funds. To date, we've had a few more families. We'll have those numbers by the next report, or it'll come out in the formal report that we provide to you all. Most of those were referred from Cascadia Health for Garlington Place and Central City Concern. So the total number of families we have served to date is 43, and we projected anywhere between 50 to 75. So we're on track to do that, and currently exploring creative methods to spend the funds down, get more people into housing, and hopefully alleviate a lot of the moving barriers that people tend to face when they prepare to make the transition back home to North Portland. Next slide, please. And just leaving an opportunity for any questions and feedback. Thank you for allowing me the time to report.
Thanks, Davisha, for the report. Appreciate it. We'll begin with questions from our online team. Ramon, any question or comment?
No questions at this time.
Okay, Achilles?
No question.
Tanisha?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to just say that's really great news, Davisha. The program sounds really, really wonderful, and I'm so grateful for all the work that you put into it, and just to continue to see you really work that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sheila?
I'm sorry, I have to boost up my partner, Nikki Lunclair. She has been monumental in this as well, so this wouldn't have happened without her pushing for it. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Sheila? We will move to those in the room. Ms. Virgie, any comment or question?
No questions.
Thank you.
No
Ms.
comment.
Sheila?
I'm sorry.
No comment. Okay. Kevin?
I just have a question about the 0 point cohort. Like, how likely is it that the 0 point cohort gets access to one of these units, and how, we were talking earlier about kind of like the wait list maintenance and purge, and it seemed like the room almost was surprised to hear of how big the 0 point wait list was. So I'm just curious, do they stay on that wait list inevitably at 0 points? Is there a chance that a 0 point cohort will get sort of moved to the top, and how do we think about the vast volume of 0 point cohort?
Well, I'll start, and then Davisha can jump in. We have gone through the whole list for some buildings, and I believe we have had a few 0 point households get into rental. Our goal is to not have to get to zeros, that sevens, and so sevens are people who have had, city action. And then sixes, of course, they had both themselves and their parent, grandparent, or guardian qualify for 3 points. And so we really want to focus on those folks that are 4 points and above. And so that's where we're, when we send out lists, that's where we're starting. And if we're not successful, then we move down. But it is a large list, and that's part of how the program, why we've not had any issues with HUD, because anybody can apply. It's not restricted to the area. You just get more points if you've lived in the area or your ancestor lived in the area. You're welcome.
Mr. Washington. Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. The only thing I was going to add is everything to what Leslie said, and the goal is hopefully to engage folks in 0 point categories. Something that's been seen over the years is, in some cases, some people may still have a misunderstanding of how the preference points work. So I've had a few people in the homeownership rounds in past years who's like, oh, I didn't know that I could use past address. It says past address in the question. So we run into interpretation of questions and stuff all the time where people may not go as far back in their past. Maybe past is a relative or subjective term for folks. They don't know that they can go as far as childhood. And when that's discovered, sometimes they reapply and they move up in the point cohorts. I'm putting that out there as a shameless plug too for any applicants that are in the 0 point cohort to contact us, work with us when we do any of our engagement activities. I think there's going to be more of a focus on that to make sure we're engaging those people.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Thanks, Davisha. Appreciate you and the team. Thanks for the work. Didn't I?
No.
No, I thought before I went to everyone else, we didn't have them.
No.
Jillian, do you have any questions or comments?
I've talked enough. I can pass on this one.
Okay. Jillian says that I skip her on a regular basis. I never skip Jillian, ever. Gwen, we're going to go to you, and we're going to have you. So we're going to change a little bit of our agenda tonight. I know that Gwen and Ms. Goodlow are involved in this one. So, hi, Gwen.
Good evening, committee and Dr. Hisrick. Good to be here. My name is Gwen Thompson. I serve as the Communications and Community Engagement Strategist for the Bureau. And I'll be sharing the lineup for the second quarter newsletter, which is scheduled to publish in June. And I'll also be discussing the reopening of your committee's recruitment. You may be familiar with the fact that you've lost a couple of committees, so we want to get you guys up to your, get the application out and ready to go. Do you want to comment on those who we've lost?
So, well, we haven't lost them, but Felicia Tripp resigned from the committee a few weeks ago? About a month ago. She just has a lot going on, and so, and she served on the committee since the very beginning, and she felt like it was time for her to let somebody else have a seat. And
Most specifically, she said, when I started, my son was in 5th grade.
And
He's
now
now a
he's in
freshman in college at Howard. So she thinks it might be time for someone else. And I said, Felicia, I don't understand what you're referring to.
And then the other seat, we believe Gabrielle is not able to return. And so Gwen will be managing our recruitment process. So go ahead, Ms. Gwen.
Yes. So of course, if there's anyone that you know that you think would benefit from the experience, or that you think would be a wonderful addition, please don't hesitate to send me their name and information. To the newsletter, I want to say that our readership is up, but beyond that, this next issue will be a bit more robust than what we've seen in the last 4 issues or so. One of which is that I will be collaborating with our service area staff So I will be working with additional folks to find out what they might be able to add in terms of just new ways to approach broader audiences, story ideas, and things like that. So I'm looking forward to engaging with more staff on the Community and Economic Development team. Our lineup includes our 10-year anniversary celebration, so we'll be getting the story out about that. We'll also, for NHP, be doing a write-up about the lead program, which just kicked off. So we're excited to work with Ira on that story. For the PHB rental write-up, it will focus on Albina 1 and M. Carter Commons, getting the word out about those two new developments. We want to make sure that folks are getting into gear, as Ms. Davisha has shared. We will also present an update on the Williams and Russell project, highlighting the goal to build a vibrant, supportive community that fosters economic and cultural growth for Black Portlanders. And then, as per usual, we'll have two stories of resiliency in this issue. One is a home buying story, and the other one will focus on home repair. So that is my report. I'm looking forward to delivering for you guys a wonderful newsletter for the second quarter.
I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I appreciate your focus and what you brought into the space. I don't know how many ways I can express from my perspective that this particular work has been under the radar way too long, that we haven't gotten the noise, nor the focus, nor the energy around this historic, monumental, cascading process that we've been involved in, from not only the growth of the dollars and the investment, but the amount of people who've been impacted positively by what we've done. This should be being shouted from the rooftops. There is no other city that is doing this kind of work in this kind of manner and that has accomplished what we've accomplished. And so I'm glad at least we're talking about it at some level. We've had this personally in our conversation.
Yes.
But I say it again for the sake of those who are hearing it and the recording. We're changing generations, and that is something worth making noise about. We're helping people buy homes from 30% to 60% to 80%. That's phenomenal. And it's something that, again, should be talked about. A process that brings together community members to help inform how government does its work, a sense of collaborative approach that not only supports nonprofit partners and developers, but does it in a way that holds everybody accountable and keeps people moored to values that are greater than any one individual. I think that's the kind of story that should be talked about, but it's not sensational enough. It doesn't get the kind of sensationalism that much of the media does. However, the value and the importance and the significance and the weight and the difference it makes in people's lives cannot be heralded enough. So thank you. Thank you for your time and your energy, your effort, and making this a priority. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yep. Comments from any of the...
I still have my part to do. So.
Oh. You got something to say?
I do.
Tonight?
Yes.
About this?
So, yes, as it says on the agenda, I was going to talk about the annual report. So I do have our almost final report in my hand. As you can see, it has a little bit of red. I'm kind of like a school teacher going through making edits, but we will be going to council on June 24th at the Housing and Homelessness Committee. They meet from 10 to 12, and 12 to 2.
12 to 2. 12 to 2.
12 to 2, yes, not 10 to 12. Yes. So if you are interested, if any of our committee members are interested in speaking along with Dr. Holt, please reach out to him or reach out to me, because we'll need to give them a run of show and who's going to cover what. So it would be great if we had a couple other voices besides mine and Dr. Holt's. I'll be running the slides. Dr. Holt was, I have read through this a couple times, and he has so clearly hit, I mean, what he just said, but when you read this, you're just going to be so proud of what we have accomplished, because it's absolutely amazing. So thank you for all of you guys for everything that you've done. But kind of off script, is Miss Sheila still on? Yes, she's still on. I just wanted to give a shout out to Miss Sheila, whose daughter is going to get married during the Grand Floral Parade. She was selected from about 40 people who applied, and I ran into her at an event last night, and I've known Jasmine since, I don't know, she was like 11 or 12. And so if you go to the Grand Floral Parade, her daughter will be getting married and then riding through the parade. So congratulations, Miss Sheila, on your baby getting married.
Oh, thank you, thank you. We're excited.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Love on parade.
Circling back around the report, I think we're getting it out to everyone, the copy of it, so they can.
Yeah, as soon as we make the edits, I'll get it out to everyone.
Awesome. So you can see it, and would love to get your feedback. And I want to emphasize it would be great to have you present, not only on the 24th, where we are reporting out to the committee, the smaller committee, but also to make noise in terms of this going before the larger council. We will request it, but I think our presence makes a difference as well, and other voices. I would love to have you participate in the process. For 10 years, I've been speaking to city council around it, and I'm honored to do it, but I would love to have others in the space as well. All right, we've got one more thing, and back to you, Ms. Goodlaw.
Ms. Norma, you want to put up the slides? We're going to run through this quickly. I think most of our development part, we got, I think, she's hanging out. All right, so for the folks that weren't able to participate in the 5 o'clock meeting, we were fortunate to be able to meet with many of our development partners from 5 to 6 to talk about some changes to waitlist management that we hope will be beneficial to them, being able to lease up quicker, to be more efficient, to not have to go through hundreds of names to get to a unit being leased, and to decrease the amount of time it will take for them to get a waiver if they're unable to lease from the list. So next slide. So our goals to reduce the time to get a list to the leasing team, be able to create targeted lists, so lists based on buildings that people are interested in, the size of unit that people want. In the case of M. Carter Commons, people that are over the age of 55. And so in the case of Magnolia, we don't want to send them a list of folks that want 4 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms and they only have 2 bedrooms available. So it really reduces the number of calls and people they have to reach out to. We're also wanting to decrease the data entry. Right now, when people respond with they send us emails with change of address or phone number, and then one of the team, which there's only 3 of them, has to take that information and put it into a spreadsheet. And, the more that the likelihood of having an error increases, or even an error on their side. So we want to try to do something with a QR code where people can scan a QR code and fill out their information electronically that then goes into a smart sheet on our side. And let's see, decrease the time, I talked about that, for partners to get a waiver. We're doing some updates to the list on how often we're purging, and to get people that if they don't respond, we're not continuing to send them out to the partners. That if they don't respond to us, they're more than likely not going to respond to the partners. So they can reapply, but folks need to understand that they need to reply and say, I'm not interested at a minimum. And then once we get through this new process, the team will be focusing on some quality assurance calls with folks when we get lists back, asking them a few questions about what their process was like for them, if they were called, if they just didn't qualify, from their perspective, how it went. All right, next slide. So some of the changes that we're going to be working with BPS on is adding to the online application.
BPS?
I'm sorry, Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. They manage the online application for us. And so we're going to ask them to add a unit or bedroom size preference and to make the email address required. We were looking for a software solution for us to do this electronic updating. We're looking at a QR code, but really to reduce this transferring of information over and over and over again. Thanks to Albina Vision and their leasing team, they sent us over a sample pre-application form that we are going to plagiarize and make it work for us that we can use going forward. That will include who the family members are, and income information, and again, the unit size. Yes, John brought a copy. So we're gonna use this, take their logo off and add a couple other things, but something very similar to this. So when people respond, they'll send this back to us saying, yes, I want a unit at Magnolia 2, or I want a unit at King Parks. And that will be the trigger for us to then send their name over to the building. And then marketing and community engagement, we're going to be increasing marketing for specifically when we're leasing up new buildings. So Albina 1, we're working with them right now, and we're going to have something in the newsletter. We're going to do some additional email blasts that building is opening, so people will get on the list now. And then increase community engagement and videos and flyers and some other things that we can do to help people understand what this list is and what it isn't, and what you need to qualify, that just because you get on the list doesn't mean that you are going to get a unit. So we really want to ensure people have full awareness. All right, next slide. So this is just kind of a process of how we're envisioning changing the how we manage the wait list. And I'm not going to read all of these, but the gist is that the agency notifies us that they have a vacancy. We will send out the vacancy to folks on the list based on preference and sorting. So folks that want a 3-bedroom, if there's a 3-bedroom vacant, we're only going to send that unit to them. We're not going to send it to everybody. They will then respond with the pre-application. My team will then put them in list order and send them over to the leasing agency. They will call or they need to contact people through 2 ways. Once they get through the list, if they lease it up, great. They send us back their list saying, John Smith rented, he's all good, the unit's leased. Or if they don't lease it up, then they automatically will get a waiver. Unless they say, no, I want to get a few more names, you send it back out. So reduces the amount of time it takes for them to get a waiver. It enables me to track waivers in a better way. So next slide. And this is just a kind of a calendar of what it could look like if we stick with this twice a month theme of when, so if we send a list out send email out to applicants on the 1st, they need to respond by the 11th. We would then, depending upon how many people apply, we could do it quicker. But right now we're saying by that Friday the 15th, we would send the list to the leasing team. They would have however much time they need to go through that list to try to get someone into the unit. And I've just put there by September 1st, although they may get it done sooner, that if they're unable to lease the unit, then they would get a waiver when they send their list back. Next slide. So again, so we are only going to be transferring names onto the wait list once a month. Right now, we're doing it every 2 weeks. It's just a lot of work, and given all the other work that the team is taking on, we're going to reduce that this side because there's a lot of work in going through and deduplicating, and if somebody reapplies, and one time they applied, they had 5 points, and one time they applied, they had 3 points, we have to, if the 5 points is a newer application, then we have to go through and take out the old one out. So there's just a lot of maintenance on this wait list that we're trying to reduce. We're going to create a form for our partners to be able to request a list. And so that's what that request for applicants is about. Next slide. We're working on the purge process. I mentioned that a little bit. So if they're not responding to us, we're not going to keep them on the list. They can get back on, but if they don't respond, we're just going to take people off. I mentioned during the meeting that we did have a complaint go to the city's ombudsperson, and we had to put about 100 people back on the list because we didn't have sufficient documentation of why we took them off the list. So we want to make sure that going forward that we have crossed T's, dotted the I's. If we take somebody off, that we have good reason. Relationship and stakeholder engagement, that's what I was talking about outreach, having in-person and Zoom meetings for applicants, building trust with the community around the preference policy, what it is, what it isn't, the team going to events and tabling, and then also improving communication with our partners. Next slide. And then again, that's just the engagement. And so Gwen is working with Divisha and the team around how can we improve engagement and information for folks getting onto the list. And I think that's the last slide. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Let me go first of all to our online team. I'll start with you, Tanisha. Any question or comment?
I don't have any question or comments, no.
Okay. Achilles.
Just a quick question. Where are these two buildings located? I don't think I saw an address.
Which two buildings?
The one on the...
Albina 1 is down near the Coliseum. It's down near the Rose Quarter.
Okay.
And then M. Carter Commons isn't open, or they just started construction. That's the building on that we're putting in on Interstate, right near Kaiser.
By Kaiser. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all good.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sheila.
I'm just appreciative of the work you guys are doing to keep the list updated, even though it's a lot of work.
Excellent. Jillian?
I'm pretty sure I said everything I needed to say in our earlier meeting, so thanks.
Absolutely. John? Kevin?
I'm also good.
Ms. Virgie?
Okay.
It was a great conversation we had earlier. Thank you, Leslie. Thanks, team, for all the work you're doing in regard to this. Ira? You're breaking protocol, young man. And you didn't make the 10 years, so I've got an issue.
I'm pretty excited because I was able to get Jillian's answer, so that's why I'm here. So, and I think you will be surprised by one of the things you hear. So for the new construction, there were 36 purchases of the 119. 16 were 0 to 60, 10 were 61 to 80, and 10 were 81 to 100% AMI. The lowest of those was 34% AMI. And for the DPALs, there were 83 of those, and 16 were 0 to 60, 36 were 61 to 80, and 31 were 81 and above, and that breakdown is 16 81 to 100, and 15 101 to 120. And the lowest AMI for a DPAL is 15%.
That's the person who has the bachelor, right?
It may be, yeah.
That's amazing. Thanks, Ira.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yep. If you could send that out, that'd be great. Awesome. I want to say, Ms. Goodlow, in regard to the work you're doing to manage the list, this is critical. and I appreciate the priority given to it, the work, the effort, the energy around it. I said this to several of our partners in between our meeting, and that is this committee's goal for the last 10 years has been to ensure that the community that's been most impacted has an opportunity to be successful. Successful in rental units, successful in home ownership, successful in being part of the community and being valued. But the goal for us wasn't merely that people get in units. It was also that those who are building the units can maintain them, sustain them, et cetera, that it be a benefit for their development, that they might be able to scale as well. We're also concerned about who was building the buildings, who had the access, who had the opportunity for the workforce development, and how we could scale those buildings. This was a holistic approach. It always has been, and it will continue to be. And so this kind of work to assess how we do what we do is part of the process. One of the things I said to the director as we were sitting here, and that is that when you're doing work, sometimes there's pivoting. There's adjustments that have to be made. Not frustrated at all by this. This is a sign of progress. Good work has happened, which is why we've discovered ways to do it better. I don't want anyone to think that we are in a crisis moment around the preference policy, or that there is a walking away from or a backing up from the preference policy. That is by no means the attitude or the perspective. I would almost say that there's a doubling down around the preference policy because of the data you just heard. 31% AMI purchasing a home, or 15%, that's phenomenal. Again, something that we need to be making noise about. So I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the work and the energy. I know it's tough. I know you have a staff of 3 to do it, but the value around this, it's immeasurable. There's no metric that we can use that creates some sense of valuation. So thank you. Thanks for taking on the load. Thanks for being uncomfortable. Thanks for having the uncomfortable conversations. Thanks for pushback on those who want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The policy is not the problem. The policy does what it's supposed to do. Our process can be improved. So, John. Okay, John.
Yeah, I have an appreciation. I think I want to share that with Leslie and them, and with you also. You know, being a community member and, you know, being someone engaging constantly in the community, you hear things. And it was really great to be able to hear something, bring it to this committee, and watch how quickly the committee addressed it. You know, and I think this preference policy was bubbling up pretty interesting, some of the topics and conversations that were going on in the community. So I'm really, it makes me proud to know that this committee responded as quickly as they did to it, to guard the gate, on that, so that it didn't get out of hand. And so I appreciate y'all, Leslie, for the work that y'all did to respond to that. And thank you for this committee, yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for your time tonight. It may seem like it's long in terms of our being in the space. Had lunch today with Bryson Davis, who is the president of the Williams & Russell CDC. And I mentioned to him as we sat at Matador on Williams, I grew up a couple of blocks up the street. Very different neighborhood then than it is now. And thinking about the level of poverty that we were experiencing at that time. How wonderful it would have been to have some folks advocating for me. Yeah, that's why we do what we do. Because not everybody has a voice. Not everybody has access. Not everybody gets a seat at the table. It might take a couple hours, but we're changing generations. I think it's worth it. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, Doctor.
team.
Thanks, team, for being online. Have a good night.
Stopped.